Welcome back to the Aura Fury podcast, everyone. This is your host, Jacob, or better known as EconBrony within Aura Fury. We're glad to have you all back, and I've got some amazing guests with us. We're going to be talking about modding. Real quick, we've got some awesome news from Aura Fury. We have been approved by the state of Texas to be a nonprofit corporation, so we're moving right along on that. Next step in line is going for federal recognition of 501c3, and we should have the application for that within a couple of weeks. So we are moving right along with that. So we've got three guests with us. One of them you have met before, but two of them are brand new. I'm going to let each one of those individuals introduce themselves. So we'll start with Aledark.
Okay. Well, I'm Aledark. I'm an admin for Apache on the Vintage Story server, and I've been playing mostly Vintage Story for almost, well, 2 years now. And I've joined Apache at least a year and a half ago now. So, and being participating in different projects with Econ and other people, and the modding part a little bit. I'm quite new to it, but I give my feature requests to these good coders who will present themselves after me.
Apache, did you want to introduce yourself next?
Okay, yeah. Hi, I am Apache. I've been on Aura Fury for, I don't know, about a year now, I think, something like that. Started on Vintage Story, done a little bit of Ark Survival Evolved and a couple of other games as well. I'm a streamer, content creator on YouTube, but most of all, I'm known for creating mods for various different games, and most often at the moment with Vintage Story. I've got a couple of mods out, which we'll talk about in a bit, but first of all is the Dilly.
Hey, yeah, my name is the Dilly. That's how most people know me, but you can just call me Dilly. And I think I've been in our Fury now for 4 months or 5 months. I don't remember exactly, but it's been a while now. I applied for the Linux administrator role at some point. I've been on Vintage Story for, I guess, a year or so, but I've only joined a few servers, some German servers before, and then I finally found my way to Aura Fury and helped them out where I could. And I also do some modding, and I'm mostly known for the Essentials mod, which is basically a server mod to help administrate and make admin life in Vintage Story easier.
Awesome. Since we're on that subject, you might as well introduce your mods, Dilly.
Sure. Well, as the first one, as I already mentioned, is the TH3 Essentials mod, which is a server mod which lets you interact from Discord with Vintage Story servers, which the basic concept first was just to have a chat, and then it got expanded upon. So you have different commands for adminning. You can whitelist, you can re-allow character selection from within Discord. You can shut down even the server from within Discord. And later I expanded upon integrating a Grafana dashboard. So we have a lot of metrics now 24/7 logged into an influx database where you can see all those fancy metrics like when certain players are online, how long are they online, how many entities are spawned, and how many chunks are loaded, and a lot of different stuff just to monitor the server, see how healthy it is and what's maybe causing problems. So this is the most important mod, I would say, and most well known, and I guess very appreciated by a lot of servers, also big ones, so they can get some insights.
That's definitely appreciated from the VS admin side of things, because before your mod, I used to go through reading a text file and trying to pasting that into Excel to figure out what was causing ping issues and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely saves a ton of hours. So it's appreciated.
Even from a moderation standpoint, it's become easier because we can tell when players are online, how long they've been on, and things like that. So when somebody comes through and says there was an issue, we can go right back and say, oh, these people are the ones that were online, and it narrows it way down for us. When before, we really we didn't really have much of an idea. We'd have to feed through the logs. We might find some login times if we're lucky, but it wasn't quite that easy. But the 3 Essentials mod isn't the only mod you have created. Is that correct?
That is, yeah. Well, first, I just want to get one more thing out of the way with the Essentials mod, which is very useful to be in Aura Fury and have like Aledark contributing more or less to it, like making feature requests and such. So we expanded it a lot since I've been at Aura Fury, because the needs of what Aura Fury needs and what other server owners may as well need. And for my other mods, I think, well, there's 2 more on the ModDB, and one is upcoming, which we can talk a little. And the 2 on the ModDB, one is just a simple, when you place down blocks, it auto refills the current block you placed. So if you have like the whole inventory, will refill your current slots. So you don't have to manually drag over stuff. And for the last one, which was actually my first mod, which was or is my only content mod, where I added a paper press so you can craft the paper lanterns within the game, like in a very natural way. Not just a simple recipe. I implemented a whole paper press where you have to cut the papyrus, then roll it out, soak it in water, dry it, and then press it to make actual paper, and then craft lanterns. But there's some other content in there which was used on a server I was admin before, but right now I think it's not really used anymore that much, at least for the other content stuff. It's mostly used for the paper stuff. And yeah, the last and upcoming mod is my dungeon mod. So I'm working on a mod which brings procedurally generated dungeons into Vintage Story. So like large underground structures where you can find and loot and fight against mobs. But it's more or less an early stage, but it sort of already works, but not released yet.
Nice.
I had a preview of it last night. It looks amazing.
Awesome. This is the first I've heard of it, so I'm excited already. Looking forward to it. For those of you that haven't heard of Vintage Story, look the game up. It is a really awesome game. There will be links down in the description, so you can go and take out a look at these games, as well as all these wonderful modders. We're going to allow Apache to introduce his mods now.
Yeah, I've got 2 mods in active development at the moment. The first one is called Campaign Cartographer. And this is all about mapping within the game, what you can do with maps, mainly about adding and managing waypoints on your maps to make it much easier to grow within a world. If you find some copper on the ground, you just pick up the surface copper, and then it will automatically mark on your map where that copper was. Same thing for any of the different surface types like tin, or if you find gold or something like that, it will mark it on the map. Same for berry bushes and mushrooms, resin, all kinds of stuff. And there's also a way to export your waypoints out of the game, so you can give them to somebody else that are in the same world, and they can import them back into the game, and they will have all of the different waypoints put onto their map. The second mod is actually one which is being released hopefully in the next couple of days, because the only thing I've got left is some of the translations that need to be done. Aledark, if you can help me with the French translations on that, that'd be great.
Okay. I'll to ask for a little when it's recording. Yeah. Perfect. That's strategy.
They'll put you right on the spot. You better do this.
Yeah, it's called Accessibility Tweaks, and it's a much bigger version of a mod which I did have out before, which was called Environmental Tweaks. And this is designed to help two groups of people. The first group is content creators like me that need to do stuff like get rid of the clouds in the sky to be able to take a screenshot. If it's really, really dark and dingy in game, then you need to be able to brighten the sky up and get rid of the clouds and the fog and everything. And that'll make your screenshot a lot better and brighten the scene up. The other group of people it really helps is people with any kind of epilepsy or other disabilities which can be triggered by lights, sound, and motion on screen. So it gives you the ability to disable all of these effects, like having raindrops streaming down the screen, all of the hailstones and the snowflakes, all of these particle effects which can cause or trigger epileptic fits. I try and get rid of those, or at least give you the opportunity to get rid of them. And the other big feature I've just added into it is a color blindness filter. So you can actually change the color of the scene that you see. And you can simulate how the game would look if you had one of the 9 different types of color blindness. So it'd be really interesting to see. I know the last stream you had Rinbindo on here, who is colorblind, completely colorblind. He only sees in grayscale. So it'd be interesting to see. And yes, excellent. So it'd be interesting to see how that mod works for you or for Rin if the game isn't trying to force 3 colors into the space where you can only see 2. Whether my mod will actually help that out and make it a little bit more easy to play. So that's the idea of making the game more easy to play. I focus on quality of life mods more than content mods.
And those mods are really well done. If you haven't checked them out, be sure to check them out. Again, links down in the description. The mod that actually goes through and adds in the waypoints and all that is hugely helpful. It saves a lot of time, and you don't have to go through and manually put them in and label them. It just does everything for you, which is awesome. It's one of those things that if it was taken out of the game right now, it'd just be like, oh my gosh, it feels like there's something missing.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
start getting to the point where you depend on them. It'd be the same thing if we took 3 essentials out of the server. We just like.
I'll have to give a shout out as well to Copy Girl with that, with carry capacity. Carry capacity is a mod which I would not want to play without.
That's one of those mods that there's actually been talk of putting straight into the game. So
yeah,
hopefully we actually get to that point. That would be awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Aledark.
Especially, I remember when you started with waypoint extensions, the ancestor of your campaign cartographer, and that was like breaking ground in that the automatic TL and trader waypoints were godsend, and now it's even more like it's really polished and complete now. So it's a very good thing, especially for multiplayer. Or I play with my dad in single player, and we just send each other our waypoints. So because he plays more than me, so even for just 2 people playing together, it's great because he plays on his single and I just join him every now and then. So it's very appreciated.
It's always good to get that feedback as well, because we make these mods and we don't really know what the audience is going to be when we start making them. So to actually hear that feedback of, it's almost essential, and it's made our life so much better and so much easier. It's always so good to hear all of that. It makes it all worthwhile.
All right, Aledark, you want to introduce the project you've been working on?
Yeah, basically, in the past, before January 2022, I was only contributing to other mods by either translating them or putting bug reports on their GitHub or messaging the authors every time we updated on the RFR server. And I figured, well, I got an idea to integrate more guides, basically just links, stuff we send to all players all the time, but within the game instead of like a document that we send them or a link that we give them. So if you hit H and click the guide, all the info is there now. And initially I wanted to have two aspects to the Aura Tweaks mod, which is why I named it Aura Tweaks. I wanted to like modulate certain entities that cause the server to lag every now and then. But I took that on the side since I've heard, not officially, but I guess they're gonna work on that part in the vanilla game. So I figured my time was best spent to just go for the guide. So, the lane claiming that everybody asks, what's the command again? The group commands, and what are the client and the basic links to everything Aura Fury or VS related were put into a big guide. And in my real life, I don't code, but back in the day, 23 years ago, I did study to become a programmer analyst, but that was before 2000. So I do have the logic, but everything that has to deal with, well, maybe I should develop that in our next subjects, but I had to relearn a little bit of things, and big thanks to I asked the daily many questions, Apache a few ones, and other mothers out there like Dales or Caluminium or other people for like little tips there and there, because finding the info when you're not used to programming can be a challenge if you don't have that background, I'm gonna say. But once you got the basic done, the funding stage, you can build on it a little bit. Depends how complex your task is. Mine was, I think, the simplest of them all. So yeah, that's the Aura Fury tweaks for now.
Well, even if it was simple, it has already made a difference because I get less questions. That's for sure. And it is much easier for me to just go, well, hit the letter H in game and then read this guide instead of having to send links to all this stuff or send them to the website. And it's crazy for me to even think about at this point where it's like, well, if they ask for the social, the Patreon and stuff, it's like, oh, just hit the letter H. That's in game too now.
Yeah.
So that's really awesome. And very convenient for us and other server owners out there. That is another mod to take a look at. Not so much for the part where our socials are in there. Obviously, it would be more for you to put that in there. But having the land claiming advice in there and the links to the vintage story wikis and stuff right in there it makes a world of a difference.
Yep.
So thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Thank you all of you for
like
making
today,
the mods you make right now.
Like today, the vintage story wiki is down and has been down for like 10, 12 hours. So I've got questions from people from other server how to do this stuff. I just join the referee and hit H and it's in there. Well, now on my mod pack and look into the English file where all the links are there. So I did that 3 times today since I woke up. So
Wow.
it's funny, but it's true. So
if it works, it works. It's like
yeah.
All right, so I guess we'll move on to talking about some future plans for your mods or possibly even mods that you would like to make at some point. So we'll go right back to the Dilly to talk about
it. Future mod plans. I mean, I still have my dungeon mod in the making, which is also my bachelor's project at university. So I'm definitely gonna work on that the most, I guess, for next time, and also my DH3 Essentials mod will get improved when there's more feature, like urgent feature requests or something broke for sure.
You mean like
But
the race to still feature that we talk about? Is that what you meant?
Exactly.
I use Apache strategy there.
Sure, sure.
All right. What plans do you have, Apache?
Oh, should I go now? Yeah. My biggest mod which I want to make is going to be a very, very, very big project, which is called Chaos Mod. Now, this is the example I've taken is from Grand Theft Auto 5, which I've made a couple of mods for before as well. But the Chaos mod in Grand Theft Auto 5, essentially, every 30 seconds to a minute, a random effect happens in game. So this can be anything from iron nuggets falling down from the sky, or every drifter within 50 blocks of you starts dancing, or every animal within 25 blocks of you explodes. The day can turn to night, night can turn to day. You can be teleported anywhere in the world. You can turn into a drifter and wander around for a minute. You know,
Or a
anything
chicken.
you can think of. Yeah, you can turn into a chicken. Anything you can think of in game. And this is what I love about this, because anyone can give me these really, really kind of silly ideas that they want to see, and I can turn that into an effect and then add that to the chaos mod. And so there's so many different ideas for this. You can be bounced up into like 100 blocks into the air and then land with no fall damage. And yeah, you can become like 5 times the size you normally are and then shrink back down again. But each effect only happens for about 30 seconds to a minute or so, and then it goes back to normal. So it's designed for single player mode, and it's designed to be run on Twitch or on YouTube as a live stream thing. So you will be able to have your chat in Twitch actually vote for which effect. There'll be like four effects that come up, and they will be able to vote 1, 2, 3, or 4, and the winning vote is the effect that will happen. And so it's basically the streamer versus their chat.
So you could also integrate the channel points in Twitch to let people redeem certain effects, I guess.
Yes, you can. Yeah, you can do all kinds of stuff with that. So it's meant for that. On YouTube, there's a quite a famous YouTuber does speedrunning for Grand Theft Auto 5 called Dark Viper AU. If you want to know what Chaos Mod is and how it can work on Twitch, watch him, because he runs Chaos Mod for Grand Theft Auto 5, and it is hilarious. And that's kind of what I want to bring into Vintage Story, because I think it would work actually quite well. From taking what is a fairly linear and straight-laced game and turning it into just this horror show of a Twitch stream where absolutely anything can happen. And you can die in seconds and then be brought back to life and teleported all over the world, and it'd just be so much fun.
Yeah, the interaction and then the straight up entertainment of watching something that would be amazing. It reminds me of some of the 7 Days to Die streams I've seen in the past where yeah, they could pay to have these crazy things happen. Rinvender is one of those that does that.
Yeah, that's actually where I got some of the ideas for the effects were from interacting with Rin in his stream and talking to him afterwards on Discord and seeing which effects the chat most enjoy inflicting upon the inflicting upon the streamer.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that. That would be a lot of fun.
It's only in its infancy at the moment. I've got about 20 or 30 maybe effects sorted, but I haven't touched it for a couple of months now because I've been working on the other mods which I've just released. So I'm going to go back to that soon. And so yeah, have a look on the various different Discords around, and you'll see all of these random effects where I'm testing them all.
What about Campaign Cartographer? Did you choose to keep it as a client-side mod, or do you still intend to have the server functions as well that you spoke
Oh
about?
yes, I'm actually splitting them out into two mods.
Makes sense.
I'm making a mod called Landmarks, which there's two parts of that for people who don't know, which is the first part of it is so that players can designate a single spot on the server as their home location, or their where their home base is, and then we can synchronize all of those locations between players on the server. So that if I want to know where Aledark lives on the server, I can just go to the list and choose Aledark, and it will show me exactly where his base is on the map as a waypoint. And then the second part is where server admins can actually make waypoints, and they can also be synchronized between players. So these would be things like shopping districts, or like the build competition location, or the Christmas district, that kind of thing, where public landmarks, server points of interest, where you want everybody to know where it is. So one is player based, and one is server admin based, but they both kind of serve the same purpose.
Nice. And I
Awesome.
suppose there'll be eventually down the road integration with the automap mod for the offline. That's it feels like all those like big mods have like interconnectivity features that can work well together. But it's definitely a challenge.
I've been working with Melchior as well, who runs the automap mod. And I've been discussing with him quite a lot about how he actually takes the information from game and then produces it out of game for the automaps. And so I'm actually able to take his code and implement that within my mod to be able to make them work as seamlessly as possible together.
Awesome.
That sounds great. Do you have any future plans for mods there, Aledark?
I mean, I kind of like side contribute, but more on the ideas and stuff like that with the daily on the essentials. I'm probably just gonna update the referee tweaks, and we have a side project in referee. Did you want to talk about that, Econ?
Sure, go for it.
I mean, it's related.
It is.
We wanted to do like as someone, well, we just made it into a nonprofit. So how do we pay for servers is via donations and Patreons. And we're thinking of doing a mod that gives no advantages, but something cool to people who contribute in game. And we thought, well, we've got the Blue Flame logo. How about we make like an entity that follows the player around and that is available to people who pay for the Patreon and scale it up by tiers of contribution. So, but we don't want to do a lot of administration and manual entry with all that. So we thought maybe if we could link the Patreon, the Discord, and Vintage Story together and give a special hold permission to people who have Patreon to summon or unsummon the different entities that we're creating. That'd be nice, you know, having a blue flame spirit follow you around. You know, it's something cool. It's really just cosmetic, you know, so it's not like a pay-to-win community at all. Or I think it's not into the either Aura Fury vision or Vintage Story vision, but it's just something to say, hey, thank you. So we've got different tiers. I think the first one, well, everything is subject to change depending on the implementation and everything. But I've seen actually Daran, which is another mother who codes and done many different mods. I think his two most popular one in Vintage is Better Crates and Extra Chests. is actually working that part-time, and you might have other contributors who may be in the chat as well, who will contribute to make that mod live eventually. But everyone does that, not paid and voluntary on their own time. So these things are not like something that someone has 40 hours per week for many weeks in a row to get done. So it depends on everyone's motivation and time, and you have to juggle your priorities with life, but your gaming life as well, and your modding life. So it might be a more midterm that this mod will come to life, but we will make it available to the vintage community as well, so they could link their own Patreon and make their own entities depending on whatever they want. So that's something interesting that's in the workbooks, in the long workbooks file.
We've gotten some feedback over time from the Patreons, as well as one-time donators that have told us that they'd like just a little something beyond just, the pat on the back that says, oh, thank you for the help, and the occasional shout out in the Discord, and then being on our website. Even if it was something as simple as just a different color on their name in game. I'd imagine the entity or the pet, or whatever we want to call it, is going to be beyond what they're originally asking for. I have a feeling it's going to end up being pretty popular. But the big thing is that we wanted to, of course, as Aledark was saying, find something that's not going to be like a pay to win, that doesn't give anyone any advantages. And the other thing is here at Aura Fury, there have been multiple times where mod projects have been done over the years, or mod packs, or whatever, and we always like to make all of our mods something for the whole community as a whole, not something that's specific just for Aura Fury. Now, there are some pieces of these mods sometimes that are very specific, like the Aura Fury Flame in this case, but you can replace that. And then, of course, with Aledark's mod, that goes in and adds all of the things to the book in game. That's something you can go in and edit and change and do for you too, because obviously you don't need the Aura Fury socials on your server.
Well, it could be good publicity. Come,
yeah, free publicity. we appreciate it if you do, but not
have the entity play a song like "Join Aura Fury, thank you" on the other server would be quite funny, but I don't think any other server on ours will actually download that. So,
and they probably wouldn't be very appreciative of that too.
Yeah, especially with the way the sound is done in VS. If you don't do a proper attenuation, it could be server-wide announcement every 30 seconds.
Yeah, I could actually probably make a mod which, no matter which server they try to log into, it logs them into Aura Fury.
With the one that would be screaming in the background, it's like join Aura Fury. You can always be like these subliminal messages, or you can do like a quick flash of the Aura Fury logo.
Like some pseudonymous way of brainwashing people. Yeah,
it's like those old stories of when Coca-Cola would flash Coca-Cola in the movie theater. But it would be not enough time for it to actually show to where your eyes would really notice it there, but it'd be enough for your brain to recognize it happen. And they do those studies to see if you thought about Coca-Cola or not. It reminds me of that.
that's true.
So does anyone else have any other plans in modding at all that they wanted to share?
I did want to say though, Aledark, you said before that you were kind of just side contributing to mods. I want to really kind of hammer home the point that bug reports and feature requests and stuff like that are absolute gold dust for us modders. We need that kind of stuff to keep doing what we're doing, to be able to come up with these mod ideas, and to be able to keep developing them and maintaining them. If we don't know about bugs, we can't fix them. And if we don't know about stuff which you think could be useful or added, we can't add them. So any kind of feedback, either negative or positive or neutral, just kind of tell us what you think about it. And it is always, always, always worthwhile to do. it's brilliant when we get feedback, regardless of what that feedback is.
And I think one of the issue for people that are not really used to look into the logs of vintage story, first they have to know how to find the logs, right? Which for some people is like, I'm trying to find a good parallel, but fighting a needle in a stack on their computer. Is that the right term?
Yeah.
And then analyzing, well, what's the bug? Because sometimes not every bug in all the mods and in the game make you crash, right? So, but sometimes, yeah, like there's a slight memory leak. Sometimes it occurs only at certain times that you have done so and so. So, and
when I talk about feedback though, even if it's just the game did this, is it supposed to? Or your mod made it crash, but I don't really know where or what to do. I was doing this at the time, so like I was picking up a mushroom at the time, and your mod made my game crash. It came up saying Apache tech dot whatever caused this issue. Even if it's just the kind of the very, very basics of what you were doing at the time, even if you don't have any kind of log files or anything, that will help us to narrow down bugs and to be able to squash them.
True.
Yeah, sometimes it's very helpful if people just describe what they did in game to maybe reproduce it and find easier out what happened.
Yeah. Or like a video sequence, you hit record with OBS, you upload it on YouTube as a private video, you send the link, I crashed there, I did that. So that can tell a lot of info in a quickish manner. But of course you have to be recording. But sometimes just a screenshot, can tell a lot too in certain cases.
But to be honest, even just a couple of lines written down, just explaining what happened and when, that's usually enough.
I think one of the issues is a lot of the info on bugs and stuff doesn't always come up to the author of the mods. Some people have hard time to differentiate what is a vanilla issue versus a modding issue sometimes. Even when I look at some errors, I'm like, okay, is this caused by vanilla or that mod? But anyhow, just reporting the mods to the right people at the right place, I think is essential, or sending a DM to the authors and everything. And actually in the Apache Tweaks mod, you've got the direct link to all the MODB mods that we use on the server. So you can just click on one, go to their GitHub or forum posts, or, if you know them in the community, just message them. And that's always appreciated. Have I lost sound?
No.
Anybody reported the last sound issue?
I agree with everything you've said there.
Yeah, like Dilly said, Aledark, you're always right. No, I'm kidding.
Right.
That's not true. But... yeah. You want to go with the next question, Inco?
Sure.
Unless.
So this question actually comes up a little bit from some individuals over time. At least I've been asked it back when I was doing my mod pack development stuff in Minecraft, and is, why do you mod? So why do you do what you do? Did you want to start with that one, Aledark? We'll go the other way this time.
Yeah, basically it's a very egocentric purpose. Okay, at first, to have less time doing admin stuff and more time playing. At first, it's a bit of that. And since I have like a programmer analyst background, even in my thinking now, it's still present. Even in my current job is completely different. I always try to make it more efficient if I can. So my goal was to make sure that, I still want to help people, but I want to empower them by providing them the tools that are right for the job. And it's also about a need, that you have to see in the community, or for our community, or VS at large. I just thought that, well, if I add that into the game, I'm talking about the guides I wrote, well, I think it would empower the players themselves just by being there. They just have to look it up. So they are less depending on other people to get the info they need. They don't even have to open a browser to check certain info. And so that was my personal thinking, specifically for out of every tweaks. And I'll let when I do a feature request for other mods or authors, sometimes it's about efficiency, quality of life. I mean, it depends, and sometimes something that the current vanilla game lacks, which we can develop on the side and get maybe years ahead of what the dev team could have done by their own with the resource they have, is another. It's something interesting in that aspect. Not sure if that made sense at their end, but I think you guys get the essence of what I meant.
Yeah, definitely. So why do you mod Apache?
I think there's kind of two questions here. Why do I mod, and why do I mod Vintage Story? Why do I mod is because I've been doing it pretty much all my life. I'm 38 years old. I wrote my first computer program when I was 4 years old. So I'll let you do the maths on that one. Computers have been in my life forever. And so when I see a game, I kind of see the code written in the game whilst I'm playing it, if you see what I mean. I can kind of understand what kind of coding goes into what I'm seeing on screen.
Visual
And so I can
structure of it, kind of.
Yeah. So I can see problems which may occur or but might need fixing, and I can kind of come up with a way that they may be fixed. So that's why I mod Vintage Story, is because I saw some things about the game which could be automated or that could be made easier. I don't want to spend time doing all of this mundane stuff. I want to spend time actually enjoying playing the game. And so I spend months and months and months actually building up this mod just so that I can save a couple of minutes in game. But yeah, as Aledark said, it is also an ego trip. I quite like the fact that I can actually put my input into the game and have that input recognized. And I suppose one of the really big thing is, at the moment I'm looking to get a job or start a career within programming. And so this is becoming my portfolio to actually show to companies about my history of programming and what I can do and how I go about it. And so I'm trying to write all of my mods as if it was a job interview. So that's why I go into so much detail and over-engineer absolutely everything, just so that I can have this really, really robust way of doing things, but which will stay true for a long, long time, regardless of what happens actually in the game itself.
Apache's code is really nice to read and well structured, I must say. It's always nice to look at it.
Thank you.
So what got you into modding, Billy? Or why do you mod, I should say, not what got you into. That's the next question.
Yeah, that's another story of what got me into modding. But yeah, why I do mod, I guess the most important thing for me is, well, I first started off playing a little bit, and then you see here and there what's maybe missing, what could be improved. You play with other people, they tell you what they dislike or what they would like, and then it's basically for me, well, if there's something I can do to improve the quality of life in a game, or add something to it that people actually want to use, I feel like I would want to do it and give it to the people so they can have more fun within the game. And it kind of makes yourself proud if you have something that people like and they enjoy using.
Awesome.
I guess that's really the main thing for me.
Yeah, what kind of pushed me into the little bit I've done, but all my stuff's back in Minecraft. I haven't actually done anything in the vintage yet. Was members of Aura Fury kept going to me. It's like, I want this in game, or I want this mod, even though the mod won't work with the other mods. That was actually the first mod pack I ever made, was because of that. There's this mod everyone really wanted, but it wouldn't work with anything else. So I went in, made some tweaks and adjustments, and then got it to work with everything else. And that was the first kind of mod pack. And Fear the Night was my one of my more popular mod packs, was kind of that whole thing, was just Aura Fury coming in and say, hey, we want this, we want this, we want that. You should change this recipe, you should change that process, you should change that. And I was like, sure. So it was actually a collection of a lot of ideas that came about within Aura Fury, and then we came out with a product that we had a lot of fun with, and ended up creating one of, at the time, our most popular server, because it was actually a product that was created specifically within Aura Fury. But then I was actually surprised to start finding out that people over in Japan were running Aura Fury servers. People over in Germany were running Aura Fury servers, and I was getting information or seeing live streams on it. And that was, it warms the heart, so to speak, when you see people using what you worked on and having a lot of fun with it. And that became kind of the drive to keep Fear the Night going for many years, even after Aura Fury kind of stepped back from it for a bit because other individuals were using it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool to see.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next step will be Fear the Night VS.
Oh God. I don't know if people are ready for that kind of level of grind on top of what's already in vintage yet. Maybe someday in the future, because QWP Quentin, he actually has been working on some of those things that you'd find in Fear the Night with his mod, going on to the next level of like automation through machines using electricity and things like that. So could be a possibility years down the road, but Vintage Story itself has to develop some more to add steam in and things like that first before we start getting into that, I believe.
Yeah, and there's a big magic mod coming out soon as well, which is basically not a remake, but a version of Formcraft.
Oh, that is exciting to hear. That would be really cool. Looking forward to seeing that for sure. So I guess the next question is, what was it that originally got you into modding, and what kind of keeps you going at it? So we'll start with you, Dilly.
So yeah, initially what got me into modding is I don't know if you've heard of Armor 3, the game. There is a mod called Breaking Point, which originated from an Armor 2 mod called DayZ. Like, it's a survival genre game, and I played that like a few thousand hours. And eventually they went to make their own game, and so they released the source code of the mod. And this is the first time where I got into actual game modding. I've known the game in and out, and I know what's broken, so I looked at certain things and tried to fix it at first. And I got to it and made pull requests on GitHub for that mod. And we ran our own server when they released the server files for it. So yeah, that was like really one game that got me really hooked. And then I wanted to fix certain broken things and keep it and push it back onto the community so they can enjoy a better version of it.
Awesome. So how about you, Apache?
What originally got me into modding was probably I was really interested in hacking. And
I knew it.
Yeah, and so it was kind of a logical process of going from trying to hack to deliberately cheat within games to being able to mod games to just make them a little bit easier rather than going all the way over the edge into actually cheating. So I used software like Cheat Engine, which is not just like a thing to cheat games with. It's actually a very, very, very good highly optimized reverse engineering tool, which is used within computer forensics worldwide. And it's one of the best versions of that kind of software out that's ever been released. But using that allows you to actually see the code which is written in games, to be able to decompile the software and to be able to actually make your own additions to those games. One of the first games I ever modded was the original version of Doom, where we made our own maps for it. We made our own sound effects, me and a friend, and we kind of shared these ideas, and we had these 3.5-inch floppy disks, which we'd save files onto, and then we'd meet each other in a park, and we'd give each other this physical floppy disk, and then we'd take that home. Because this was like before I even had an email address. So it's been early to mid 90s it was. So yeah, very, very young. I suppose why I continue to mod now is it still gives me that feeling of being able to look into somebody else's code, to understand it, and be able to modify and add to that code in a beneficial way. I think it's probably the best way to explain it.
Awesome.
Nice.
So Aledark, what got you into modding?
Just figure out needs, and since Vintage Story is made by design for mods, I felt it was a natural way of improving certain aspect of the vanilla game by spending a little time to save me time later. And well, I guess just trying to be an active VS and Apache community member by contributing to the solution instead of just raising problem and saying like a bit in a passive way, like, well, that sucks. Okay, but how can we improve or fix the situation or find a better solution? And in my book, that was through modding and collaborating with others to find solutions. It's the way I think in my life and my job and everything. I always try to fix problems, I guess. It's a way of thinking, really. How can I be constructive? Well, I think it's a very constructive way of contributing in my book.
Cool. So
What
Dilly,
about you, Econ?
oh,
You haven't answered any questions. No. What got you into making the Fear the Night mod pack?
like I was kind of saying earlier, it was just mainly so many people were asking for these different things in Aura Fury, and I wanted to make something that was very specific that the group of Minecraft players we had and wanted, and that's what pulled me in. Otherwise, my coding probably would have never went beyond CSS and HTML and web design. I got pulled into Java and custom script languages and things like that because of Minecraft, and that kind of sparked my bit of interest. I'm starting to learn Python now too, so that'd be nice. But for our next question, so what were some challenges you encountered in your early days of modding? We'll start with Dilly.
I mean, the first challenge, I guess, for every mod or anyone going maybe into some sort of programming or whatever is to get started, I guess. So get the initial motivation to the first thing you interact, like getting into modding, is probably reading some documentation, some documents, how to actually do it. And I think, or at least I have met some people that are hesitant to read documentation. Like I tell them, go there, read it, watch a tutorial and so on. And some people don't really like it. So I think that, yeah, that's the first thing that hinders people from getting into it. but that wasn't that much of my issue, I guess. I started up learning like just small bits and then get more into the more detailed stuff and build up on that. Just start little. Don't go with too big projects at first, because that's going to discourage if you can't make it in a timely manner. So I guess that's the
Baby
early
steps.
challenges. Yeah, baby steps you have to take to get into it, to not overwhelm yourself.
All right. How about you, Apache?
I think the biggest challenge I found at first in Vintage Story is actually a challenge I'm still finding now to this day, is that as soon as you start modding, you stop playing. And I haven't had it's not I haven't had the time, but whenever I log on to Vintage Story, I'm always thinking about what I'm going to do in the mod and like what can I add to the mod, or how can I do this, or I really should be testing this rather than just playing. So I found that I've played a lot less, and has probably been seen on Aura Fury. Definitely, I haven't logged on to the Aura Fury server for too long. I really should do. I need to actually cut all the crops down, which I planted last time I logged in a couple of months ago.
They were
And I need
all
the new
eaten by
horse.
rabbits, Apache.
Oh, probably, yeah. I know. Last time I logged on, we had to kill about 200 rabbits, didn't we? That's no joke either. But yeah, it's the whole thing of the way my mind works. At least I don't know how it is for other people, but when I get a problem stuck in my head, I need to be able to solve it before I can rest, or before I can start really seriously thinking about other stuff. So if there's something which I'm stuck on in my mod, and I try to play the game, then I'll just be thinking about what I'm doing in the mod instead. So that does come up quite a lot with this. I suppose, as Dilly said as well, in the very, very early days, reading the manual, actually reading the documentation, which is actually very, very good for Vintage Story, is very, very important. Actually, understanding not necessarily how to take the first step, but understanding where the first step starts from is probably the most important thing. And as soon as you get there, then the whole of the rest of the modding community is there to help you throughout the entire rest of the way. The modding community in Vintage Story is very, very close-knit and very, very good at what they do. I've heard from people who have come from modding Minecraft and who have come from modding RimWorld, that within both of those games, and I'm sure within others, the modding community tends to end up quite toxic and quite, lots and lots of people lots and lots of egos clashing with each other. Whereas within Vintage Story, especially now, we've reached this quite harmonious point where we're actually able to teach each other a lot of stuff, and we're able to help each other out a huge amount of the way. Not actually writing mods for each other, but teaching each other how to write those mods and brainstorming off each other and coming up with new ideas. And it's been really, really good to be a part of that community.
Where
I
do
think
you
also
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
what I was gonna mention is probably what Vintage Story makes more successful with modding is that it's encouraged and built by the game already. So not unlike Minecraft, I feel like it's more difficult to get into modding, and it's sort of like they don't endorse modding. Like Vintage Story, the game itself is a mod, so you feel more like at home when modding in Vintage Story.
Yeah.
And so the people reflect upon that and are also very open and helpful. But I have never modded Minecraft. I'm just talking of what I've heard. And when I looked into it, I didn't really want to get into Minecraft modding because it seemed more complicated.
So how about you, Aledark?
What was the question again? Sorry, I drifted off. I was
No
reading something that someone sent me, and I was like trying to. Yeah, go ahead.
So what were some of the challenges you encountered in the early days of first getting into modding?
very basic challenge, like understanding the syntax of the language, and saying to myself, God, you're so dumb, you forgot to put like a hand of connotation mark there or there. And the fact that, well, I'm gonna go into a detail just to illustrate like what I mean is in Vintage Story for guides, Tyron, the main game of VS, built like a VTML markup language, okay? And the info on the wiki is okay, but maybe not as in depth as I would have wished it was. So sometimes I was asking other people like, why the hell is this making an error there? And sometimes it was just my own fault of not closing so-and-so argument, or I didn't know that it required a slash before a color, a certain color or something like that, you know, very basic stuff. But like Dilly said earlier, it's baby steps, and it's a part of understanding the language. I did look up a lot of other mods to kind of not replicate, but kind of inspire myself and validating that I'm doing the right thing and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm not sure if I answered the question correctly, but
You got it.
yeah.
Just to bounce off that, I think one challenge a lot of people find when they first start coding in general, or just programming in general, but especially in modding, don't be afraid to fail.
Mm-hmm.
Every single person in the modding community has failed making mods, regardless of how many mods they actually have out. All of us have failed. And all of us have learned from those mistakes, and all of us have taken those mistakes and owned them. So that is the biggest advice I can give to anybody starting out. Do not be afraid to fail. And don't be afraid to admit to your failure either. Even like with the community, don't be afraid to say, this doesn't work. I don't know why it doesn't work. Can you help me? Because everybody there will help you. There's no problem with it at all.
People have been super helpful, even though my challenge were very small. You know, I was editing with like a text file, like a Notepad plus thing, and I had trouble like to scroll because the line of code was so big and it had to be on the same line. And when I found that in Visual Studio Code, I could just do Alt Z to resize it to my window. I think I lost like 5 hours just scrolling back and forth, left and right, just to edit some things. I think having a basic knowledge of like how to edit, package a mod and everything is like, would be my advice, is like making like such a simple mod that you just understand how you can package it and then have it in game and working game, and then you can build upon that afterwards, because at least you got the basic structure down, you know, which would be the first step in my book. And yeah, not having like an ego issue when other people tell you that you could have done this more efficiently or a different way, because, you know, more minds and eyes on your code or problem or anything is as always better than just your own.
That is some good advice. Well, so moving on to our next question. Do you need to know coding or modeling, etc., to get into modding? And what level of understanding do you think you need just to kind of get started and really get into learning all this? We'll start with you, Dilly.
Yeah, I mean, it's more of an open question again towards all of us, but I'll start a little bit. And I think you don't really need to know any prior when you want to start modding a vintage story. There is very easy ways to get started and do things. There's the wiki, which has a lot of information and examples, which can get you started very quickly. And of course, there's the Discord, the Vintage Story Discord, and there's also VS Works, where there's a lot of modders which will help you out and get you along the way and figure things out if there's something broken. Maybe Apache can add some to that.
Yeah, I kind of mirror that sentiment, to be honest. I think the only thing you really need to start modding is a willingness to learn.
Yeah, that
Everything
for
else
sure.
can be taught. But if you don't have the want to actually learn how to mod, then nobody can teach you that. Nobody can actually can help you with that. That's something for you. But if you actually want to get into modding and you're willing to actually learn what it takes to make these mods, then the world is your oyster with it. And the two main, I suppose we can call Aura Fury's Discord as well, because there is a modding community within Aura Fury Discord. The Vintage Story official Discord, and there's also the VS Works Discord as well. All three of those servers, there are modders on there, but we're more than happy, even if you just want to talk one-on-one in voice chat or just over text or over private message about a very, very specific issue. Or if you have no idea what you're doing at all, we can give you training in C# or in JSON or in any other languages which you want to learn. We can give you all of the stuff, 3D modeling that you need. If you actually want to make new entities and stuff within the game, we can teach you all of that as well. So it is literally all you need is a willingness to learn and a Discord account. That's pretty much the two things I'd say.
Anything you want to add, Aledark?
No, I think they pretty much summed up very well what's required and what's and very good advices.
All right. So another question that kind of pops up from time to time is, do you need any specific software or hardware to get into modding? Do you want to start with that one, Billy?
Sure. I mean, for hardware, I would say if you have a computer that works decent, I guess that's good. There's nothing, I mean, besides of having a computer that runs the game, then you should be good to go, because the model editor that's used in Vintage Story is not that heavy on resource usage or anything. So the game really much is the thing you want to have to get running. And if you want to be more productive, I mean, faster hardware is always better, but it also costs more. So yeah, for hardware, I think everyone should be really set if they have a computer. And for software, there's a bunch of options, I would say, to start modding in Vintage Story, at least for the coding side of things. At least you can go with any text editor, which will make your life a little bit harder. If you have something like Visual Studio Code, which has like syntax highlighting, which knows the domain of the game and gives you suggestions based on what you're trying to do. Like if you are an object or so, you get certain methods presented to you, so you can figure out what you probably want to do by just the name of a method or so. But yeah, else than that, I don't think there's anything super special you need in software else than a good code editor, some understanding of coding if you want to do coding side of things. And if you want to do modeling, you have to get into the Vintage Story model creator. but there's also some other options. I think maybe Apache can talk more about that.
Yeah, I'm probably a little bit more of a purist when it comes to the software side of it. The biggest thing I would say for somebody looking to go into making code mods and writing C# is to download Visual Studio Community Edition. It's free. It's a Microsoft product. It's free. It will be free forever, and it will see you through. Even if you want to make a career in C# and programming later on, you will still be using Visual Studio Community Edition within your job. So it is the stuff that the professionals are using. It is the exact same software that professionals are using. And you can use it from day one. There is a bit of a learning curve with it compared to something like Visual Studio Code, which is essentially just a fancy version of Notepad. That's all it is. So compared to that, it is a bit more of a learning process. But as soon as you've been using it for a week, maybe 2 weeks, then you will find it far, far, far better, more advantageous and faster, more efficient than using Visual Studio Code. So Visual Studio Community Edition is the best piece of software you can download if you want to get into writing code mods. Other than that, as Dilly said, there's a number of different options for everything else. Any code editor like Visual Studio Code or Notepad++, or even just Notepad itself can be used as well. And the model creator that comes with the game as well. They are probably the 3 different types of software that you would use the most. It helps if you've got something like Photoshop or something like that, some kind of graphical editor if you want to make textures as well.
Or GIMP or other free alternative are usually fine for most things you can do. It's about learning each of these, I guess, and asking around what others use, because sharing your tips and tricks can be interesting for more accomplished modders and also for beginners to get a bit more fast track on the right path, which
I'd
say listening to this podcast episode can help as well.
You will find a lot of the tutorials are written with Visual Studio Code in mind. I think they were written originally by people using Linux, so that they didn't have Visual Studio itself installed. So I think that's where some of the confusion comes, because Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code are 2 very, very different pieces of software.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where the confusion comes sometimes.
One other important thing I would say is if you, whatever software you want to pick, for example, Visual Studio, like Apache suggested, which has a better integration, of course, is to get to know your software you're using. So look up some tutorials. There's a lot of features in them, like shorthands, search and replace, renaming of functions, whatever, you name it, which makes your life much more easier when you do modding. So really get to know your tool.
Yeah,
and
just
also
one thing on the hardware as well. Sorry, you were saying that so long as you've got a computer that can run the game, you can mod the game on that same computer. I completely agree with that. However, I would say that if you want to do some of the more advanced stuff, like writing shaders, then a better quality PC, or at least a better quality graphics card, is preferable, especially because you're able to actually debug the code that you're writing and make sure that it works on a kind of on your hardware. So if your hardware is kind of the minimum that the game can run it on, then all you know is that your code will run on the minimum. If you've got a better graphics card, then you will know that your code will run on most people's machines rather than just on the minimum.
And I'd say like a second monitor to have your code and sometimes in the game you can adjust your code live, while looking at what it does in game. For certain types of coding, it's interesting. Having like a wiki or like a tutorial on one screen and on the other that you're actually coding is, there's a lot of time that you waste just doing constantly alt tabbing. So I'd say a second monitor is very nice. It can just be a laptop on the side, but just having access to another monitor sometimes is. I feel I have got two, and sometimes I wish I had three.
So I've
Can
heard
definitely
of a few recommendations as far as, the second monitor or Visual Studio Community Edition or even GIMP was brought up. But are there any other resources, either software, hardware, or places you can go to learn code or whatnot that you'd recommend outside of like the Discords and stuff that have already been recommended at this point? Did you want to start on that one, Apache?
Yeah, YouTube. YouTube is where I've learned probably 90% of all the coding that I've done in the last decade. There's lots and lots of different people I could mention, but won't, because it kind of depends on what you want to do, on how you actually learn. I think one of the stumbling blocks people come across is that they watch a video on YouTube and it doesn't sink in. So therefore they just give up. And like they'll try to watch episode 2 of this series, of like a 40-part series, and it just doesn't make any sense. So they just give up. If you have Visual Studio open in front of you whilst you're watching that video and actually follow along with what they're doing, then that can really, really help to help it sink in if you're actually doing it yourself rather than just watching somebody else do it. There's a huge amount of different resources online. One of the really good ones I've found is called Code Academy, where they will teach you from day one, well, basically do a 0 to hero, from never hearing of a single language before to being an absolute master in that language, for I think there's about 50 different programming languages that they will teach. A lot of their courses are free. Some of them are paid, so you'd have to have a look through. But Code Academy is a very, very good resource for that.
Nice.
Did you have anyone you wanted to add, Dilly?
I'm not sure. I mean, for the most part, I also just use YouTube. In the early days, I started with using some course sites like Udemy or such, but it's really not necessary since there's so good material on YouTube you can get for free. So I don't see the point going anywhere. And well, for other points to look things up is probably wikis of the game, like Vintage Story. You want to mod, there's also good tutorials or introduction stuff. I mean, not for basic programming, but for getting into further stuff.
Yeah, actually, I should give 2 plugs here. One to the VS Works Discord again. If you come onto there, we've got tons and tons of resources, and we actually cherry pick different YouTube videos to put onto Discord, which go through specific problems which you may be able to solve. And the other one is, if you look on Twitch, there are people that actually will stream modding Vintage Story. One of the guys is called Vise, makes the Vise airship mod, which he also wrote for Minecraft. And now he's come over to Vintage Story and has started, well, he's actually released a brand new version of it a couple of weeks ago, I think. So there are people like that that will actually sit there and talk to you live on Twitch about modding and about what they're doing within their mods.
And also, I guess if you have a certain idea and someone else has done something quite similar, but not exactly what you want, you can use that as a stepping stone to check out what they have done, how they have done it, and analyzing their code to try to pick little things there and there that you might need to make it faster. I mean, sometimes it's not worthy to reinvent the whole wheel when there's a perfectly fine solution out there, if it fits your needs, of course. So, downloading different MODB mods that you can inspire or learn from is another, I think, it can be well spent time.
Yeah, that also works for the game itself, since it's basically just 3 mods. The game itself, you can just look up the game for the same reason, for examples and how to do things to get you started. This is basically how most content mods, I guess, originate. If you want to do something like the game does, but a little bit different, you look up the exact thing the game does and then sort of copy it.
Yeah,
And
or
Yeah,
know
so
that
it's
they have
something-
so and so function within the game. Well, you can call that instead of writing your own.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, something that people don't really realize is that the Vintage Story, all the content within Vintage Story is just a mod. There's 3 mods. There's the Essentials mod, there is the Survival Mode mod, and there's the Creative Mode mod. So everything you use within game is just mods. So that's how modding is so integrated into the game, because even the game developers themselves, at this point, they're just writing mods.
So for our next question, I'm just going to ask it to all of you, and whoever wants to start can pick it up. What kind of tools can game devs provide to encourage and make modding easier for everyone? And this doesn't have to be specific to Vintage Story.
Documentation websites is probably the biggest thing. Vintage Story does this very, very well, in that a lot of the code in the game is annotated. It's got comments written actually in the source code itself, which means you can take all of those comments and put them onto a website. So we can actually go online onto, I can't remember the actual site name. Yeah, the API reference document. And we can actually look up what a certain method or a certain property is. And it will give us a write-up that the game devs have written themselves about why they wrote that method and what it does. I think a lot more games should do that if they want to try and encourage people to expand upon their own games. Other than that, I think model creators, I know that Tyrone wants to rewrite the model creator that comes with Vintage Story, but it probably won't be done for quite a while now, to be honest, because of the new updates that are coming out anyway. So yeah, just being the game devs, I think more than what tools they can provide, it's what support they can give. For me, it's about being able to talk to modders and bring modders into the game development process, and so that we can both learn off each other.
Yeah, I guess there's not much to add than just that the game developers at Vintage Story, for example, do integrate modding like from the start, which really helps. If game developers start making a game and try to patch modding after onto it, I guess it's more difficult. But I'm not a, so to say, game developer, so take this with a grain of salt. But I think it's more difficult to patch modding into a game that's already made if you don't intend modding at the start.
Yeah, it's interesting because I came into game development from a whole other world. I came from both web development and software architecture. So within software development and web development, there's this whole kind of rigid structure where everybody speaks the same language about different design patterns and different architecture design choices. And there's this whole other language that gets spoken. And that doesn't seem to have translated fully into game development yet. And I think as the two worlds merge, it'll be a lot easier to develop games in the same way that, say, websites are developed, where everybody knows about the different design choices that you're making. And therefore, a lot of stuff is hot swappable between each other. So you can swap out what database you're using, you can swap out the graphics engine, you can swap out this. And that will intrinsically make modding more easy in the future, I think, as we merge the two worlds.
My only thing I could add is in most cases, like when there's a major patch, most mods need to be put up to upgraded, to be compatible again. So, but Vintage Story does something with pre-releases and release candidate. But having a little heads up of what's the upcoming feature without saying so feature is coming sometimes can be interesting for modders to have info that the next major update might impact their mods. But other than that, I think they do very well in that regard most of the time. And also with the small team that they have, if they were a team of 15 developers, it would be something different. But it's mostly rad fast and tyrant coding. So yeah, I think they do a fantastic job with the time and resource that they have. Have I lost sound? So not silence there.
Some international delay, I think.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah, we are coming from 4 different countries on this one, so.
True.
a worldwide conference.
It is worldwide conference on modding just for the viewers.
Yeah.
So just like the last question, anyone can just kind of chime in on this particular one. But do you have any fun stories from your modding experience or users of the mods, whether it was a funny mistake that happened or a challenge that was really hard to overcome and you made it through, anything like that?
No, for me, making the chaos mod, I'll say I haven't done it for a couple of months now, but sorting out the effects on that has been so much fun. I had to animate the drifters with like a dancing type thing, and then try and work out how to make all these drifters around me start dancing. And then one of the other effects is every animal within 25 blocks of you explodes and creates craters in the ground. But I swapped around some of the values and worked out that I'd actually given a radius of 250 rather than 25. So as I was walking around the landscape, I'd just hear like a big explosion somewhere and a rabbit would fly up in the air. Trying to work out why all these rabbits were just flying up into the air all over the place.
Bone sharpening effect on these exploding animals. You get damaged by them.
Yeah, and the effect is supposed to stop after 30 seconds, and it was still going on after about half an hour.
Oh,
I just felt so sorry for these rabbits.
I feel sorry for a multiplayer server running that.
It's definitely not one for a multiplayer server.
Yeah.
I had one experience back when I was working on Fear of the Night. It was a later feature that was added in. They said, well, you can make pretty much everything in the game using machines. You've gone through and added all these things that were left out from the mods. Well, why don't you add a recipe for doing nether stars? And I was like, yeah, sure, we'll go to that. So I made this massive process of making this nether star. And I don't even remember the item that you start with anymore because this happened quite a while ago. But I do remember that I messed up one little piece and it was right at the end. So the first person that went through and made the nether star through this whole process, and it spat out the same item you started with at the end instead of the nether star. So he spent all this stuff, and so he sends me a message like, yeah, this is broken. I was like, yeah, oops, little oops. That's
Yeah, it's sometimes the little things that get you.
yeah, most definitely. Anyone else have any other stories they want to share?
I think I said one earlier about the guides and the wiki was down and everything. I guess as far as the modding goes, that's about it. I might have, other stories by collaborating with others, but I think it's more their stories than mine. So I'm gonna listen to you guys saying them.
Yeah, I guess I have nothing very specific, but one that everyone that mods or codes has encountered probably, that you bang your head at a certain problem like hours or days, and then at the end it's just a simple number that you misplaced or some other silly thing, and it ends up a very little change fixing your problem.
Aledark and I were even having that issue when we did an update on the server one night. It was just like one comma or something like that that was making the server crash when we were doing the update. We just kept going back. It's like, oh, it's that. And then we found out there was another spot too that we'd missed, like a bracket or parentheses or something. And the server crashed again after we made that that correction.
I won't tell how many times the delete told me, yeah, you forgot that, this and that. And this and delete that. And I'm like, I did it. Yeah, but the server restarted, so it overwrited the modification you made. It's like, oh, okay. So you learn on the spot sometimes, and you try to not reproduce the same mistake over and over as much as possible. Or and sometimes we do this on the side from our real life. So sometimes for me or daily, I talk to him, and sometimes it's like midnight and 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. or vice versa is super light for me and really early for him. Or some things with other people, in different time zones. So sometimes you also make like just concentration and attention error just because you're not in your prime when you do certain things as well. So that can impact certain mistakes or overlooking something. Yeah.
All right. So this question again is going to work like the others. Have any of you considered making a game, and would you do it? Why or why not?
I can start if you guys want.
Go for it.
Okay. When I was about 7 years old, I started, I had like an old computer at the time. This was like in the late 80s, early 90s. And I was playing like those old Sierra games, like Heroes Quest, King Quest. It depends if you were born and actually played in those times, but there was kind of main PC games around, at least from what I knew. And I was also playing a board game called Heroes Quest, which was kind of a D&D game, but more oriented. And I actually wrote like a full binder of possibilities to the game. And I didn't know English, but I did send it to their headquarters by mail and stuff like that. And later on, when I was adolescent and trying to figure out what I want to do, so, oh God, I could, take that binder back and try to make a basic game, which was one of the projects I did in the, in 3D at the time, which was in the mid end of 90s, top tech instead of those 2D slides that you were just going north, south, east, west, and then the background was moving and your little sprite persona was moving around. So I did a few things, but never. I think it's more of a hobby for me than something in life that I want to do. So and I'm more of a of a guy that doesn't like to code something that isn't from my own motivation, kind of. So that's why I changed fields in my career, I guess. I could have done probably my own thing, but be a little bit chickened out by it. So I'm in an entirely different field now. I work with young autistic kids, so it's. But yeah, it's always been like my goal was to be a game developer from like 6 years old to like 20 years old. Yeah.
I suppose for me, my biggest drawback with trying to create a game is I can't do the artwork. I can't even draw stickmen properly. So the actual front end of the game, what people see, that's just completely beyond me. I can make stuff work, but I cannot make it look pretty. So trying to develop my own game under my own steam, like as an indie developer, would not work. That being said, I could definitely join a gaming company and develop software for them. But so far as my own games are concerned, I've written a few text adventure games like you might have seen in the early 90s and even before then. But other than that, probably not much. That's why I like modding so much, because other people have done the artwork for me.
You need to find an artist to collaborate with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, for making games for me, I guess one obstacle, as well as Apache already said, is artwork. I'm more of a programmer, more doing logic stuff. So if I'm going to, I would need someone to work more on the art stuff, on the art side. But I'm looking forward into getting into a game developer career. So that's definitely something I'm looking forward to. And I've already experienced a little bit with Unreal Engine modding, which is a great start because you don't have to do all the groundwork to get started. You can just add your things on top of it, which makes it really convenient to get into things.
Would you guys consider, like, let's say that the Vintage Story game dev does like a hire, would you guys send your resume?
Yeah, I would.
Sure.
Well, it's out in the universe now. That's I'm kidding. I'm kidding, but it's good to know those things. I don't know if they can buy the amount of copies they sell in their business plan and so on. But it's great that there's people that are interested. It's out in the universe now.
Yeah, very much so. So we're down to our last few minutes here, so I wanted to give all of you a chance to kind of plug your mod names again, plug your socials or anything else you want to wrap up here at the end. I'll let you go first, Aledark.
Yeah, well, my mod is Aura Fury Twigs. It's on the MODB. A whooping 160 something downloads so far in I say a week or something. So that's good. But I'm a strategist. It was forced on the Aura Fury people that boosted the downloads themselves because it requires to be client and server side. So, yeah, and I'm trying to work on like maybe doing YouTube videos every now and then. And if people got questions, they can DM me on Discord. Look for the One Punch avatar, and it's usually me. You can find me easily on the VS or Author Discord. And I think that's it.
All right, Apache.
Yeah, I am Apache Gaming UK on pretty much all of the social network platforms, on YouTube and Twitch, and I have a website, which is apachegaming.net. I'm on Discord, on the Aura Fury Discord, on Vintage Story official Discord, and on VS Works. And if you have any questions about modding, especially about C#, I'm always happy to chat, either on text or on voice chat. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I would say that there are no stupid questions, but I wouldn't want to hedge my bets. So, but yeah, I'm more than happy to chat about any ideas that people want to chat about regarding vintage story modding. My mods, the 2 mods I've got out at the moment are campaign cartographer and accessibility tweaks. And there's many more mods to come in the future as well.
So yeah, for my social handle, th3dilly will do almost everywhere. I'm not on like actual social media, but you can find me on YouTube. I did some videos of Breaking Point if you want to check that out, but I'm not actively doing anything on YouTube. But else, you can find me on the Aura Discord, on Vintage Story official Discord, and the VS Works Discord under the same handle, where you could message me. And for my mods, just check on the ModDB. There's th3 Essentials, which would be probably useful if you're a server owner and looking at this. You may want to consider using it. And else, I guess just check the ModDB, what comes up. Looking forward to the dungeon mod, I guess, which are a lot of people interested in already. That will be the next big thing, I guess.
Maybe if an artist wants to create some specific bosses or creature for dungeons, they could message you as well, I guess.
The dungeon mod will be created in such a way that people could make their own mods and add it to it. So it should be sort of a plug and play system. So I wouldn't want to include too much stuff within my mod itself. So it should
I understand. Okay.
Stay vanilla, and then you can add whatever you want to it.
Cool.
All right. So I will include the links, of course, to all these great folks' mods, as well as their YouTube and Twitch channels down in the description. One other thing that wasn't quite brought up that is a resource that Aura Fury offers is another Discord called Community Connections, where we help out server admins, and it's another place where you can actually run into a few modders. And then, of course, if you're having trouble getting mods to work on servers, you can kind of bounce ideas off them and try to figure out bugs and stuff on there. So another great place that you can check and get help. If you want to join the Aura Fury Discord, it is discord.gg/Aura Fury. We'd love to have you come in and join us. You have a chance to talk with all these great people, as well as play on an amazing vintage story server.
Or other games.
Yep, lots of other games. We got new servers coming about pretty much every couple of months since we run our own boxes. We do our best to keep the leg down on all those too because of that. And of course, now we're that nonprofit, so you never have to worry about the pay to win stuff with us. So thank you very much for listening, and thank you to all of our great guests that came here, shared a lot of great information with you, and I hope to see you all in the next episode. Have a great one.
Thank you. Bye, Al.
Yeah.